we don't think like other people, and we're not establishment people. But it takes some nonlinear thinking to do things like that, to expose them for what they are. I'll hand it back to Andrew for a bit, and then I'll show you just one more clip of Planned Parenthood when he's done.
Well, when James came to me, I said they were going to attack him. Everything I needed to learn about what was going to happen, I learned from my front row seat with Drudge during the Lewinsky thing, and it was a slam dunk the day that he reported it. He had the story dead to right. He had it even down to the cigar and the blue stained dress, and he watched over 8 months that the lies and the obfuscations that Bill Clinton did over 8 months granted the media the time to craft the defense that wouldn't have held at all if they attempted to try and do it during the first few days. And so we have to control the way that we deliver our stories in order to not give what I call the Democrat media complex, the natural alliance of the Democratic Party, liberal interest groups, and the mainstream media. We can't give them the time to craft their incredibly expensive and intricate propaganda campaigns. In the case of Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, the Bill Clinton one, within the first week Hillary Clinton was went on the Today Show, and she was asked by Matt Lauer, who was accidentally caught doing journalism, when he asked Hillary Clinton, if it were true, would this be serious? And she said, but it's not true. And she kept saying over and over, but it's not true, but it's not true. And he kept prying. And eventually she said, of course, if it were true, but it's not, it would be very serious. By lying for those 8 months, they pulled the living daylights out of the scandal and every aspect of the internal polls, such as, is it okay for the president to have that type of a relationship with an intern? No. Is it okay for the president to lie under oath? No. Is it okay for him to try and interfere with a civil lawsuit against him? No. Is it okay for him to ask Monica Lewinsky to lie under oath? No. Is it okay for him to prod Monica Lewinsky to tell Linda Tripp that she too has to lie under oath? No. What do you think about the fact that Ken Starr delivered all these salacious details about the sexual aspect of it? You don't like that. So what they did was they crafted a strategy to go on TV and say it's just about the sex, it's just about the sex. Ken Starr is a chronic panty sniffer. They tried, that's what they did. And they tried to say that the Republicans are sexually repressed people and that they're just prying into this man's European thing. And it felt absurd as they were doing it, but next thing you knew, you were at a Starbucks and people were telling you, you Republicans are obsessed. Next thing you know, Larry Flint is working in conjunction with the private detectives of Bill and Hillary Clinton, who looked into every single Republican's sex life, and they went back as far as Henry Hyde having an alleged affair in the 1960s, and they went after Bob Livingston, who had just taken over as the Speaker of the House, and he ended up stepping down because they had found out through private detective work that he had had an affair. They were able to work with the media to even defy Hillary Clinton's estimate that this was a very serious thing. He lied for 8 months to the country, put the country through this for 8 months, and there were positive consequences for the obfuscation and the lies. And the mainstream media solidified at that point that they worked for the other side in the guise of objective and neutral journalism as the PR representatives of the Democratic Party. There is no way for a person like me to enter into the Boston Globe, the New York Times, at any level to work and to do righteous journalism at an allegedly objective and neutral stance where we treat the Democratic Party and liberals the same way that they hold Republicans. And so we are forced to do it from the outside. We're forced to do it in ways that penetrate the mainstream media to make sure that the American people can see things that they would try to suppress. So excuse us for every now and then being portrayed as controversial. I'm glad that we are, because it's proof that we're having an effect.
Before I met Andrew about 3 or 4 years ago, I was working. I met a young woman by the name of Lila Rose, and in California, and her and I teamed up and we did this thing on Planned Parenthood. And Andrew didn't know it at the time, but he was a blogger and an internet entrepreneur at the time. He actually posted the story that you're about to see without knowing that I was behind it, or that I was working on it, and it involved Planned Parenthood. And what's interesting about what you're about to see, which is shocking, maybe even more shocking than what you saw with Acorn, is that it basically reversed the tactics. They'll always call people racist. And what I realized was that, for example, and you could call them racist. For example, the founder of Planned Parenthood was Margaret Sanger. And so we did a little investigation and called Planned Parenthood posing as someone who was pro-Margaret Sanger, someone who was pro-racism. And I want to make a point about this, what you're about to see. You know, some people in this room may be pro-life, some people in this room may be pro-choice. That the point of what I'm about to show you and tell you is not the morality of the issue. The point is how to frame an issue as controversial as abortion in such a way where everyone can agree. That's what I try to do as a journalist, expose things for what they are to enrage everyone. So we called up Planned Parenthood posing as a racist donor. This resulted in the vice president of Planned Parenthood to be suspended by what she said to us on the phone. You can play the clip. So this is our phone call.
Good afternoon, this is Autumn.
Oh, Autumn, I'm interested in making a donation today.
Fantastic.
What about abortions for the underprivileged minority groups?
Oh, absolutely. We have, in fact, wonderful, fantastic news. We just received a very generous donation to our Women in Need Fund.
Wonderful. I want to specify that abortion to help a minority group. Would that be possible? Like the black community, for example?
Certainly.
Okay. So the abortion could be, you know, I could give money specifically for a black baby. That would be the purpose.
Yes, absolutely. If you wanted to designate that you wanted your gift to be used to help an African American woman in need, then we would certainly make sure that gift was earmarked specifically for that purpose.
Great, because I really face trouble with affirmative action, and I don't want my kids being disadvantaged, you know, against black kids. I just had a baby. I want to put it in his name, you know. So that's definitely possible.
Oh, always, always.
So, but I just wanted, can I put this in the name of my son?
Absolutely.
The name of my son, great. You know, he's trying to get into colleges, and he'll be applying, you know, and we're just really big. He really faced troubles with affirmative action, and, you know, we just think, you know, the less black kids out there, the better.
Understandable. David, let me, if I may, just get some sort of specific general information so we can set this up the right way. You said you wanted to put it in your son's name, and you would like this designated specifically to assist African American woman who is looking to terminate a pregnancy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Want to protect my son so he can get into college.
All right. Excuse my hesitation. This is the first time I've had a donor call and make this kind of request, so I'm excited, and I want to make sure I don't leave anything out. I'm excited.
So after that happened, there was a protest outside of Planned Parenthood. African American pastors and others protesting outside of Planned Parenthood. And I think that if we really want to make a difference in society, we want to expose injustice, this is not about the morality of abortion. I mean, it may be. To me it is, but to others it might be about, it's about tactics. It's about framing issues in such a way. This totally reversed their narrative. And they had people protesting outside the headquarters of Planned Parenthood in Washington, D.C. African Americans protesting by the racism that we uncovered. And it's not racist, it's not just arbitrary racism. It was based on the premise, based on a fundamental truth about the organization who's founded by someone who was racist. So that's what I do. I try to capture a fundamental truth about the subject that we're investigating. I grab onto that truth by visualizing it for people. And in perpetuity, when anybody ever talks about Acorn, you know, the employees nationwide talking about declaring underage children as dependents on tax forms will appear in their minds. And in order to get the truth out there, we have to play this game with the media. If we released all those tapes at once, it would not have had the same effect. And when you investigate these subjects, every single time I know that half the battle is going to be, you know, the subject, and the other half of the battle is going to be the media, who's going to every inch of the way try to protect the organization. Why do they hate me? I don't think they hate my tactics. 60 Minutes used to do it. Dateline used to do it. Primetime Live went into grocery stores. Mike Wallace used to do it. They don't hate me for my tactics. Don't listen to them on that. They hate me because they like the organizations we investigate. The journalists don't want to investigate certain things. And certain things you ought not investigate. Well, we're going to investigate all the things that they want. And by the way, I call upon, and I've said this, I say this everywhere I go. They accuse me of being deceptively editing. I call upon every Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter, anyone, to release their full unedited reporter notebooks to accompany their selectively edited articles. Andrew could talk, I could bring up 1,000 examples of reporters who selectively edited their articles. You've all seen reporters carefully mince words to describe things. We don't mince words. Undercover video doesn't mince anything. It catches them on tape. And that's why I believe so strongly in what I do.
Let me talk about the selective editing meme, because when James came to me, I understood that they would come up with some line of, it's just about the sex, if you gave them enough time. Because we did it in such a swift way, when he came to me, I said, you're going to be held to a higher standard than the mainstream media. And you have these truncated videos that have a musical introduction, that have, title sequence, like it's Three's Company, I said, they're going to say that you're not showing the full context. They're not going to believe that these extraordinary things that they say are said in a proper context. So I asked them to do something that I had never seen anyone in investigative journalism ever do, and I asked that he allow for us to provide the full transcripts. We had somebody transcribe every single videotape, and we put the full audio so people could actually listen to the full audio so that they could hear the entire sequence. And we unleashed that with every one of his 7 or 8 minute videos so that those on the other side would not be able to mount a defense against it. That's why Acorn went down, because we did it so thoroughly and thought through the potential lines of offense and defense that they would do. It was when Acorn was under fire that John Podesta, the architect of the institutional left, he of the Center for American Progress, and on the Acorn board, along with another person on the Acorn board, Andy Stern of the SEIU, intervened and hired former Massachusetts Attorney General Scott Harshbarger to do an independent report, to which I said, guess what, guys? They were doing that to try and stem the bleeding. Say an independent report, meaning Podesta's in, Clinton's former chief of staff in charge of Obama's transition team. The serious people are in, and we're going to investigate this independently as paid for by Acorn. To which I told James, this means they're going to be investigating us, just like they did to Ken Starr, Matt Drudge, Linda Tripp, and they were going to come at us from all different angles. Yeah, they lost Acorn, and they did, because it happened so swiftly, because people like Jon Stewart didn't have enough time to get talking points from the Democratic Party. from the institutional left. They didn't have anything, but they waged the war after the fact, not to resurrect Acorn. They waged a war based upon the independent report, allegedly independent report from Scott Harshbarger, a political hack, on behalf of Andy Stern of the SEIU and John Podesta, that made it about James and Hannah and me. And it was based upon selective editing. Selective editing. And they said they did not release the full videotape. They did not release the full videotape. It was selectively edited. Yet they never went, we put the full, they had the full transcripts. They created a false perception by stating that those 8-minute videos, because they were cut, you couldn't tell what was on them. But they never stated, but they had the full perspective from day one. The goal was to create a firewall between Jon Stewart and us, a permanent one between us, so that we wouldn't be tricked again. So now, when James O'Keefe is out there, the people in the mainstream media who eventually had to cover the Acorn thing can say, we can't take BreitBart or O'Keefe seriously because they selectively edit, because they selectively edit, because they selectively edit. It's propaganda. It's a propaganda war. We predicted that they would do it, just like they would say of Ken Starr and Matt Drudge and the people that reported the thing. They're just obsessed with sex. They're panty sniffers. They're just obsessed with sex. That's what the Democrat media complex does. The problem is that the left uses it. The problem with the right is that they acquiesce to these tactics. Every single candidate in this room understands that they're going to be held to a different standard. Everyone knows that they use these type of tricks. But when they start going after James and me, because we're doing this hard work and we're thinking these things through, when they start to attack us based upon these false memes, provably false memes, these people on our side stand to the side, and they do the same thing to the Tea Party. The Tea Party is racist. The Tea Party is violent. The Tea Party is racist. The Tea Party is violent. And look at how many candidates want to step away from the very people who resurrected the conservative movement and put it on this victory path. So it's not just about putting on the institutional left. It's educating conservatives and elected officials to understand that they now have to have a backbone. Right. And if they're not going to have a backbone, then they're going to be the targets of the Tea Party. Because if you acquiesce, like John McCain did, over his political career, by trying to be the most beloved person in the Republican Party by the media, look what happened. It was like Lucy holding up the football, and what happens? She pulls it back, and he lost the election. We picked John McCain because we thought he's the one that the press won't be vicious and brutal to. And then they pull it back. The problem is the mainstream media, and we're trying, with our limited resources, to provide an aggressive alternative to create parity. That's it.
Just to visualize a couple things Andrew was saying with the hyperbole and the obfuscation, this is something that I really struggle with, because as a journalist, you're exposing something that's raw and unfiltered. What are they going to say to that, right? They find a way. I mean, I was detained for walking into a federal building in Louisiana and asking a question. I went into a federal building to ask a Senator Landrieu in Louisiana a question, and I was detained, and they got me on a Class B misdemeanor, posing as something I'm not inside a politician's office. I guess we can charge all the people in D.C. with that crime. But in any event, in the factual basis, or the affidavit, I can't remember which, the people down there referred to my iPhone, which I had in my pocket at the time, they referred to my iPhone as a listening device. So that, and when anybody read the thing, the paper on the internet, they, oh well, he had a listening device, he must be there to wiretap. You know, I couldn't believe my eyes. You know, and the entire establishment complex came down on me for being a wiretapper because they referred to my iPhone as a listening device. And this is the type of thing they do. They don't just do it to me. I'm sure you've had your own stories in your own lives of the media doing this to you. It's just unbelievable, the amount of obfuscation and deflection and editing when the mainstream media edits everything every day. But I think the solution is they can stop me. I think I'm one man, and they can. But I do have other colleagues now. We're starting an army, if you will, of citizen journalists. There's a couple people in the audience here who have worked with me, one or two of them actually, and most recently on Medicaid investigations throughout the country. And I think that they can stop one man, but they can't stop a lot. So I would appreciate your support, financial, but also if you want to get involved, I have an organization, Project Veritas, projectveritas.com. If you have an idea or investigation, you want to get involved, and to understand that it's going to require some backbone. Andrew's right. Don't step away. Understand that we're going to make mistakes. We're on the front lines, the cutting edge of this genre. We're going to make mistakes, and most of the mistakes aren't even mistakes. They're the media telling you something. I mean, I would just support people getting involved and doing it themselves and not backing down.